Well, good afternoon. A difficult day, but a day that will probably live in a lot of history. Early hours this morning, the International Olympic Committee sent out their decision based on their principles, which I spoke to you about last week, of putting athlete health first, ensuring it acted in the best interest, in the interest of Olympic sport. With that decision, announced that they would consider postponing the Tokyo 2020 Olympic Games. We also have taken into effect the new government measures that were announced by the Prime Minister to help protect and keep safe the Australian people, particularly around travel and closure of various borders of our states. Importantly, we received feedback from our athletes. The athletes desperately want to go to the Games, desperately want to represent their country at the Olympics. But they also take on board their own personal health, but also the health and well-being of their fellow athletes around the world. And that's what significantly changed over the weekend, of course, is the terrible crisis that the virus is bringing upon many countries around the world. Taking all this into account, the AOC executive met this morning and considered all the parts, both the IOC's decision, the government measures, and most importantly, our athletes. The decision is that they unanimously agreed that the Australian Olympic team could not be assembled in the changing circumstances both here and abroad. We have to look after not only just our athletes and officials, but also their families who are feeling concerned for their sons and their daughters. So with these travel restrictions in place by the government, which we respect and understand, and we understand they need to keep Australians safe, combined with a decision of the International Olympic Committee, we've decided to plan towards the hosting of the Games in 2021 in Tokyo. And I understand that's a situation which the Tokyo government and TOCOG will look at with the IOC over the coming month. Happy to take questions.
Last Thursday, you were adamant the Games would go ahead on July the 24th without being cancelled. This is really a completely different position. Why has it changed so much?
We're in times which are hardly certain, and we have to provide certainty to our athletes and our sports. Last Thursday was a different set of circumstances to when standing here today. I mean, over the weekend there's been dramatic change in our own country and across the world. The IOC said that last week as well. If you might recall, I did say that things could change. Well, things have changed, and you must address those changes.
Quite specifically, the idea of a postponement you said wasn't on the cards. Why is that now something on the cards?
Well, that's an announcement from the IOC. It wasn't on the cards last week. They've obviously taken advice over the weekend from World Health Organisations, from discussions with the Japanese government and with TOCOG, and reached the conclusion that a postponement is a possibility, and a possibility they are now investigating and will announce at the end of the month.
In your own words,
in a month, sorry, I should say.
In your own words, you said you couldn't imagine really the IOC postponing a game, and you explained how difficult it would be. In the last 72 hours, what's given you confidence that they can pull this off and postpone it?
It remains difficult. That's why their decision is they will come back to us within the month. Moving the world's biggest sporting event that involves so many people, so many sports, not just athletes, but also the world's media, sponsors, the rest, is not easy to do. Remains challenging, but the IOC decided they have to look at that as well.
The timing of an athlete's preparation is so crucial and very precise. Can they have confidence that the Games will go ahead in 21?
There's much confidence as we can instill upon them, absolutely. I mean, I guess even from our own health, people's advice here from the government is that we're looking at 6 to 7 months. We're not looking at 12 to 14 months.
Is there a sense in which this is a relief that you bought some time?
I think what most important is it gives certainty. It gives certainty to the athletes, it gives certainty to our sports, and that's the most important thing. And that's what they needed, because the feedback we received over the weekend, particularly after the new decisions by the government, plus also what's happening around the world, potential outbreaks in Africa and other places, we need to give our athletes that certainty, and that's what we've done.
Is that most of the feedback you got from the athletes after that press conference last week, that, hey, we don't feel comfortable because you saw the bodies overseas? What was the overwhelming majority from athlete bodies in Australia to what was sort of said last week?
The overwhelming position was that the athletes wanted to go to the Games. But as I said, equally they were concerned for their fellow athletes around the world. And you may have seen there's been a statement put out today by the USOC and also the Canadian, and I believe also Team GB. So it's affecting the globe.
In terms of logistics and a postponement, is 2021 more likely than 2022, and what are the main obstacles in terms of other international sporting events?
Well, 2022, of course, is the Winter Games in Beijing. So 2021, it's 12 months. It has to be a Summer Games. It's an appropriate amount of time. But again, that's the decision for the International Olympic Committee.
Can you estimate how much this is actually going to cost the AOC in reorganisation and cancellation?
That's a position which we are working our way through. I mean, the most important thing today was to make a clear, concise decision so we brought certainty to our sports and our athletes. The managing our costs and so forth, I'll work that through over the coming weeks.
A lot of the big sports though in this country, AFL, NRL, have said that their competition ceasing will be critical, catastrophic for their financial reports. Is it different with the AOC because you've got so many amateur athletes involved?
Well, there's two parts to the answer to that question. It is very difficult for those amateur athletes because some of them could have part-time jobs which they don't have anymore. International competition has stopped, so they won't have necessarily the prize money they would otherwise get. So we're engaging with the athletes on that to find out if there aren't any doing it tough, and we work with them. For our member sports, equally. There's a lot of them very small organisations, and we had a teleconference with all the CEOs of the sports today, which included the Chief Executive of Sport Australia and the AIS, and we're going to working with them and the government to see how we can assist the sports. For ourselves, we don't sell tickets. We're not the same as an organisation like the AFL and the NRL, so ours is a bit different. But I'm talking to our partners, and obviously we want to bring them along with us too in this new uncharted territory.
In terms of like broadcast rights, does that have to be renegotiated? It talks about the financial sort of implications. Do you have to renegotiate sponsorships because it's pushed back? It talks about how the contracts work in that sort of sense.
Well, the broadcast rights and those things belong to the International Olympic Committee, nothing to do with us. So they will be matters, no doubt, which the International Olympic Committee is working their way through, hence why they've asked for that 1 month before they announce their final decision. We've had to make it a call now because of the situation here in Australia and other parts of the world, but the IOC are still working through their final decision making.
Is the biggest impediment to postponement just the sheer logistics of putting everything back and reorganising everything, or is it those other international sporting events?
Yes to both those questions. Both the logistical size of the games and the people, lots of people, and also then obviously the rest of the season, of the world season that is. And the IOC has got to have a long conversation with the international federation, so that's why they're taking that month, and we totally understand that.
What are the key events that would be affected if the games were postponed?
You could run through a list of all international events next year are going to be affected, and hence why the IOC would be looking for cooperation so that if they can make that decision, they will.
You said it's going to be difficult. Sitting here today, what confidence level do you have that it's going to go ahead next year? Where do you sort of sit on that?
Look, I think it will. Thomas Bach in his announcement today very much wants the games to go ahead. Tokyo wants the games to go ahead. The government, Tokyo City, plus the organising committee there, and certainly, most importantly, the athletes want it to go ahead, and that's around the world. But they want all the athletes from the world to get there.
And just one more. Is postponement the only option now? Is cancellation still an option? Because the IOC says it's given itself 4 weeks. So what are the options at the moment?
Well, as I said, the IOC announced they're not going to cancel the games. They're going to look at postponement, and for all the reasons I just outlined.
And where did that mixed messaging come from? Because I remember last week you saying the cancellation was unlikely. Like, how did that change? Was that contractual, or was it just because this is so unprecedented in history?
It is unprecedented in history. The games have only been cancelled twice, First War and the Second World War. They've never been postponed, but there you go. It's a piece of history. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Matt.